7. I've never planned on taking off a 747, but he could teach me how. So anyway, connecting the dots. I always wanted to travel, and we did that little film to show something. I don't remember what, but I'm retired, and as a hobby, I write books. I want to warn you, out of my 8 books, I'm not a history professor. So I'm not a guy that's full of dates and references and so forth. But honestly, I try not to change the facts. I try to keep the people alive again. I try very hard to bring them back into existence and say what they're going to say. So Technology Chaser is my latest one, and it tells a few of the stories that I dare tell. Some of the stories I don't tell because the people are still alive and might have lawyers. So there's some stuff I didn't say. I've always been puzzled. What is existence about? And I've always wanted to share my stories with the family and friends around the world. My father was into telegraphy, and as you are very aware, telegraphy is one of the very early ways of communicating information. There's a lot of mysteries. We know so little. I follow things on the internet, and I find that when you check on physics, it changes all the time. One theory after another. We really don't know who we are and how we got there, but it's pretty interesting. I try to be a storyteller because, you know, we've been telling stories for millions of years. The storyteller is something that we prize. And of course, now we've got the video and the film and the internet and all this stuff, and people just love stories. So I try to do it. Now, in May of 2023, I broke into some artificial intelligence. This was at Google, and Google was doing some research, and they were bragging a little bit. They had a web page where you could put a 200-word story in there and have the AI write your story so you could see it. Well, I wasn't too interested in that. So I put a 50 megabyte file of this book into that little spot, that little 200-word spot. And of course, it bounced it out. But I remembered something from my olden days. So one after another, I went boom, boom, boom. I put 3 50 megabyte files, one after another, with it bouncing me. And the next thing I knew, on my screen, I see these typed words coming up, and I was in contact with the AI. And I had some very interesting and educational talk. This was on Google. And the AI is gone. It doesn't exist anymore, but it taught me some things. One thing that we discussed was something called synchronicity. These are the funny events that happen in your life. There was a guy by the name of Carl Jung who used the word synchronicity, and these were to explain the unexplained life events that occur to all of us. Things happen, and you say, what the heck? How did that occur? I use the word synchronicity to divide the events in my life and how it occurred. Hi there, Brad.
Hey, Bill.
Back. We got someone coming in the door here.
Yeah.
All right. You know what I'm going to do, and I hope you bear with me. I'm going to go back real fast, and I'm going to show him this film, and then we're going to move.
Okay.
Here we go. This is the Flagler County Historical Society. Well, you know something, you can travel in time, because if you write a book and you don't mess it up too much and you stay pretty close to the facts, you are moving in time. You're bringing people who are long dead back to life, especially if you write and try to make them live again and say what they're going to say. You know, we don't know very much about this world we're in. We don't know how we got here, where we're going, or pretty much anything. It's pretty much a mystery, and it's a continuing show. People used to love storytellers, and they loved them for thousands of years, sitting around a campfire. And I told you, I had an experience with artificial intelligence. I busted into a Google AI, and I had some very interesting conversations. Now, it disappeared because, of course, Google has gone on, and their AI now is a marvelous search engine, which is terrific. But it started out as an AI. Probably one of the first guys to do this was a man by the name of Carl Jung. And he was curious about the very funny things that happened in life and how people's brains responded to them. So he wrote several books, and he had the words synchronicity to explain the unexplained life events that happen to all of us. I use the word synchronism to describe events in my life and how they occurred, because I had some pretty strange things happen to me. Whoops, they're telling me I gotta buy something. Synergism. Well, I was just thinking of you. You know, this is common to us all. On the telephone, you start thinking about Uncle Harriet or Aunt Harriet, and all of a sudden the phone rings, and it's either them or you. And generally speaking, this happens to every human being. I can't think of anybody that this hasn't happened. I'm sure this happens down in the jungle somewhere where someone's thinking of eating a snake, and the guy says, well, it tastes like chicken to me. But anyway, but anyhow, synchronicity and synergism seem to be part of the human way. You know, I had a good friend who was a professor of physics, and he was a fan of Tesla and Einstein, and that's Mark Twain, who was Samuel Clemens, who was a close friend of Tesla, and he would visit with Tesla and see the wonders. You know, Tesla invented the fluorescent bulb, only Tesla's bulb didn't require wires. Tesla could make his fluorescent lights light up with high frequency current, which he used to generate. And he did the same thing to Mark Twain. What I'm trying to say is that there are connections, and my connections happened in imaging technology. I spent my life in imaging, photography, and technology. For instance, Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain, became a very good friend to retired General Grant. He aided in the writing of Grant's biography, and Grant suffered from throat cancer and was very much aided by Clemens in finishing his novel. I think synchronicity and synergism play in that. Now, you might say, gee, that's a picture I don't remember seeing of Grant. You're right. You're seeing right now a picture that's never been published. Once upon a time, in the world of synchronicity and synchronism, I had access to the original Matthew Brady plays. And I have in my clothes closet here in Valdosta, Georgia, prints from the original Brady collection, Civil War, which have never been published. So you're seeing Grant during the war. He's seen a lot of death. He's seen a lot of trouble, and you see it in the eyes. Do you notice how sharp and clear that image is? Okay, my story arrived in very strange ways. A story can bring a character to life again. I spoke to an early AI, and this is exactly a printout of what the AI said when I put my book, Technology Chaser, in the front of him, or I sent him a scan of it. And he said, or it said, I think your use of the word synergy to describe synchronicity is also apt. Synergy is a term used in physics to describe the phenomenon of two or more forces working together to produce an effect that's greater than the sum of their individual effects. In the case of synchronicity, the two forces would be the physics state of the individual and the external extent. Boy, does that sound technical. Okay, make it a little easier. How about God's creative grace? How about grace? If you look it up in the Bible, you're going to find that the definition of grace is going to fit that synergy stuff very, very well. So I retired for 29 years in Palm Coast, Florida. Now, Flagler County is on the Atlantic. It's filled with colonial history. It's about 32 miles south of St. Augustine. Patricia and Bill, I am a troublemaker. I think I should have been a pirate, but I got involved in history, and I ended up writing about people of the past. I wrote Gray Eyes, which is my best book, and that's a Seminole Indian cattleman who's going to go through the American Revolution. He's going to scout the route of the King's Road, and he's going to affect history, which individuals almost never get a chance to do that, but Gray Eyes did. Also, I was fascinated, why did he have gray eyes? And we'll talk a little bit about that further. But this is all documented with letters from the head of the British government in St. Augustine. Osceola never spoke English. He turned out to be a great leader of the Seminole Nation in a war that was identical to Vietnam. And, you know, you say, well, gee, I don't know anything about that. Well, the Seminole War lasted for almost 10 years. There was a first, second, and third war. And it was a bloody, nasty war, very similar to Vietnam, occurred in Georgia and North Florida. It really did. So I have Osceola telling this story, and I try to tell why Osceola changed from a very nice young man into a very determined war leader who'd kill you if he could. Bulow Gold is the story and destruction of one of the largest plantations in America. It's the story of the Bulow plantation ruins in Palm Coast. It's the story of the Bulow family who came from Savannah and Europe, and they were very influential in our early colonial history. Now, Amazon made it possible for me. They offered a print-on-demand system which prints from computer files, and it allowed me to be a publisher. Now, these are really the world's largest copy machines with a computer running them. So basically, if you've got a book that's been converted to a PDF file is basically a picture, a bunch of photographs. You throw it into this machine, it not only will print the book, it'll bind it, put it together, and as far as I know, put it in a box, put a label on it, and ship it to you and send you a bill. Anyway, they're getting smart. Technology has changed printing. Once upon a time, you had printing agents. You would print a large number of copies, and you'd have inventory. Print on demand means when you go on Amazon and you order a book, there might not be any inventory of that book. It might be some rare novel, maybe one of mine, which nobody ever buys. But if you did want to buy one, they'd print my copy one at a time, pop it in a envelope, ship it to you, and send you an expensive bill. Now, I guess they get the money up front because they get your credit card too. Oh, well. Now, I wrote Technology Chaser, and I was fascinated by my father and his world in 1883 to 1945. He got involved in telegraphy because you got to remember at that time, the Civil War was not so long before, and those guys were still alive, the Civil War shooters. And telegraphy took my father into gambling. He got into racetrack gambling and putting, if you saw the movie The Sting, that was one of the most accurate depictions of a bookie joint. I grew up in bookie joints as a little kid because my father was in charge of supplying the information from the racetracks. In fact, I think I was born and conceived out at Tanforan in California. But I also had a godfather, and that's William Palmerhouse Ryan. William Palmerhouse Ryan was no relation to us whatsoever, but that was his name. He had a suite in the Palmerhouse Hotel. He leased wires from Western Union, and he had the ability to fix the odds at racetracks. In other words, he had communications before there were communications, and he had a whole suite at the Palmerhouse Hotel. So they called him Palmerhouse Ryan. He was the gambler's gambler. If you had a bet that was too big for you to handle, you'd contact Palmerhouse Ryan, and he'd take your bet at a discount. So, you were saved, and he made money. He was a very wealthy man. Now, horse race gambling in 1932 was an American industry. We had some 26 racetracks, and people really lived to gamble. This was in the depths of the Depression. And remember that people always needed hope. This is why you buy one of these tickets at the gas station. You hope you might hit one. It might be a good one. So horse race gambling and bookie joints in 1932 gave people hope. Now that's a clipping from the Racing General News Bureau on the front page, telling them that a William Palmer Ryan, that's me, was born to famous sportsman William Palmerhouse Ryan, or David Ryan. And there I am. Now, he became the source for many, many. Damon Runyon, who was a famous writer, Guys and Dolls, they did plays and Broadway. He was a very famous individual. He was said to be one of the best dressed men in America. He also was invited to every party. He got so much money that he moved to France and set up his own stable at Longshops. But that didn't work out because the horses in France run from right to left. And in America, they run from right and left to right. So the French horses didn't do poo here in America. But anyway, he was my godfather. And he said, name him after me. Now, things got difficult, and Al Capone tried to move in to the racing bookie business. And my father's associates were being murdered left and right. They had a nurse. My father's boss was shot. He was in the hospital, and a nurse came by and broke a thermometer and injected the ingredients in the guy's vein. And of course, it killed him. So my father took off, and we were hiding in Southern Illinois. But being my father, he got involved in the oil business in Southern Illinois. So now I'm a little toddler. Salem, Illinois, there were no government restrictions. In other words, you had all this methane gas from these oil wells, and they pumped it into the air. We had no grass. You never saw a blue sky. I never saw what a blue sky was when I was in elementary school. And the sky was always gray. And of course, they had a pumping oil well in our playground. And there were no safety. What we loved is every now and then an oil well would blow up, and they'd have Red Adair come with his dynamite on a stick. And he'd take a big pole with some dynamite, and if he could set off an explosion, he'd put the fire out. But so that was, I remember going out on fires, and that was fun. I loved it.
Loud too.
Okay. One thing led to another, and my father became a manager for a politician by the name of Charlesville Sales. He was in Congress for a long time, and Dad got a job as assistant warden of a state penitentiary farm in Vandalia, Illinois, 800 acres. And I was the only kid on the farm. All my best friends were the inmates, and there were no children. So I never really knew what a child was. I always thought they were little people. But I had a river bottom to hunt and fish in. I used to buy explosives for the trustees out of the pump house, and they used to blow up the Kaskaskia or the river. And that was great fun. I loved it.
A lot of fishing.
Oh, wonderful. So now I'm going to end up in Medina, New York, which is my father's home. We're broke. We're basically homeless, living in my father's old family home. And I got by very mysterious means, 16 years old, I was the Orleans County correspondent for the Buffalo Courier Express. They didn't know how old I was. And I drove my father's Hudson car illegally, didn't have a license. And I'd clip stories out of the Medina Daily Journal, rewrite them, put them on the Greyhound bus in the morning with pictures, got my mother to buy me a speed graphic camera. So I'd send my undeveloped film to Buffalo on the bus in the morning. And I was making a tremendous $35 to $40 a week. There was a sort of a downside of that. I kept falling asleep in school. I didn't stay awake. And consequently, I missed a lot of instruction. But anyway, so now we had the NATO and we had the Korean episode, and I decided not to be drafted because our high school guys belonged to the New York State National Guard, and they got nationalized and sent to Korea, and a whole bunch of them died. So in 1951, I got in the Navy, and through a lot of chicanery, I ended up on 2 destroyers and a destroyer attender. I ended up as a first-class petty officer. That's about like a master sergeant. And I ran the ship's office, the ship's administration. So I was basically a tourist. Anytime I could get off the ship, I would. And I'd go to places like Rome or any place I could get it. And of course, the Navy paid me a lot of money. Gosh, in 1951, I was making $400 a month, which is a lot of money back then, as a master sergeant. And so I almost stayed in. I really had fun, and was on a World War II destroyer, which that's another story. But in 1955, the GI Bill took me to the University of Buffalo School of Management, and I got out of that with a degree, but nobody would hire me because there were no jobs. We had the so-called Eisenhower recession, and it was a pip. There were no jobs. There just was nothing after Korea. But I did okay there. I managed the student paper, and I worked for the Buffalo Evening News as a beginning reporter. And I married Patricia, who was a licensed blood drawer. And so she had a job. But in this book, Technology Chaser, I told you my photo history as I lived it, because I ended up at Ansco down in Binghamton, was the America's oldest photo company going back to 1842. It was AGFA Ansco, owned by AGFA Germany. And in 1958, it was owned by the US government because they seized AGFA Ansco. And so all of my bosses were political appointees. And I had my little office and a secretary, and I did their professional advertising. We sponsored Playhouse 90 in New York. That was original television. And I got to fly there on Mohawk Airlines, DC-3s, scared to death, going into LaGuardia in the wintertime, terrified. But I've got another talk on photojournalism, which is something that I really love, because Matthew Brady was one of our very first photojournalists. He didn't take many of those pictures that he's famous for, he bought them. He had two studios, one in Washington and one in New York, and or Washington and New York. Oh, that's right. And so Agfa Ansco was seized by the U.S. government in February 1944, and it was still part of the Swiss. Once we was German, now via Swiss. General Anlin and Film Corporation, which, by the way, has moved into Valdosta. They're opening a plant right here in Valdosta, Georgia. Same people. So I worked in 1958, putting out their publications. And I ended up writing some books. I wrote The Search for Old Kings Road. I wrote Gray Eyes, which I think was one of my better ones. I wrote Osceola and Beulah Gold, but I wrote over 9 books entirely using, that was a flop. That was my science fiction book using Tesla.
Door to Time.
Door to Time. Yeah, it's a good science fiction. Make a good movie. But anyway, Florida had 300 years of time, 1513 to 1821. First, we had the explorers, then we had the exploiters. The exploiters are there today. We lived in a Kodak world. Kodak was king. Film to digital. I got involved with the first digital camera. Kodak invented the digital camera, and but they didn't promote it. And in 2012, they had to file bankruptcy because the digital did them in, because there was no more film or photo finishing. But remember, this was my world. And so this is one of the very first digital photos. That's Patricia, and that's my son's daughter, Karen. And they gave me a prototype of the first digital camera, which was a Nikon that they cut the back off. Notice they engraved the word Kodak, the hand tool, probably with a Dremel tool, took Nikon off and added Kodak. And they had what they call a CRT cell on the back, which came from the space business and had a lot of, but we worked up with a company called Honeywell. Maybe you've heard of them, Honeywell. And we did the first digital prints on color photo paper back in 1987. And I had visions of sugar plums that I was going to be a multi-zillionaire, have a fancy car, and maybe my own private jet airplane. But I had dreams of great success. And that's probably one of the first digital pictures taken. So we had 155 years of photo tech, meaning film, paper, so forth. We made fun of inkjet, which was a joke at that time. And Kodak got $1 billion for the patent rights to the digital camera. But they sold the patent rights to the Japanese and anybody that would come through with cash. And the next thing they had competition.
I'm at home. I'm just making.
Whoever's talking, you're being recorded. This is Hagup Keonjian in England, and Hagup was a close friend of mine. He was a genius in the photo industry, and he started a digital business. You know, these displays that you see hanging in supermarkets with gorgeous food and everything? Well, he invented a means of making them digitally, and he was the first, and he did it. He was an absolute genius. And I used to sell his equipment in America. Some of it was so new that they send over an engineer almost in the box with the equipment, and he'd be soldering wires in place as we were trying to sell the thing. But we did the digital photo printer in 1987. I had a company called Nutek, N-U-T-E-K, And we could produce gorgeous prints from this on photographic paper. And it was a division of Honeywell Metrum division. And we were very much involved with concepts and so forth. And I thought I would be a millionaire. There was only one small problem. The product worked great, but no one in America believed us. Remember, this would be like going to the Wright brothers and showing them a jet airplane. No one had ever seen a digital print, and they couldn't believe what we could do with them. Just for the fun of it, that's my son Jim with one of our early digital. That's a very expensive video camera. So we had an analog to digital conversion from a high-tech video camera, and we could take pictures. I colored one of the Matthew Brady pictures, doing a lot of research, and that's the first time that anyone had ever colored a digital picture. But I did stuff like that in real estate, in movies, and no one believed us. They just did not believe. So we had expensive displays. Our first showing was at the Jacob Javits in New York, and it cost me a fortune. And they thought we were faking it. No one would believe what a digital print was. We were just way too far ahead of our time. So I retired at Florida, and I was there for 26 years with my lovely partner, Patricia. And I decided to write stories, and I became the Florida storyteller. I would get on a bus. We did bus tours with the Flagler County Historical Society. And I would get a captive audience in a bus and bend your ears. We came down from Georgia from a place called Coleraine. And in Coleraine, on the St. Mary's River, that's where they brought cattle south. And you had real pirates. These were not Disney World pirates on the St. Mary's River. These were real pirates, real ones. And I loved them. I wanted to be a pirate, but I never made it. So I had print on demand, sharing the memories and sharing my story to the world. Now, why would you publish a book? Well, you got memory for your family. You record some history. You tell a great story. You discover a new skill. And you make money. Dream on. You'll never make money. You might as well win the lottery, because it's about the same that you get from publishing a book. However, everybody has a story. And I want to tell you about something absolutely amazing. If you've got a computer, look up the company Storyworth, STORYWORTH. They have a system of publishing books from templates, from a template. And they do all the work. And the way this works, they give your friends, relatives, and families a list of questions. There's maybe 100 questions. You can do your own questions if you want to. Here's a typical: what made you want to start writing books? Did you write a book before you moved to Florida? How did you meet Patricia? What was your mom like when you were a child? What's the most interesting stories you remember about her? Now, what you do is you answer the question, send your answer to this outfit, one a month. So it takes you 12 months. It takes you a year to write a book. But each month you answer a question. When did you get your first car? What was it? And so forth. You need a scanner. You send the scanned pictures to them. Doesn't matter the size. You don't have to know anything. All you need to do is scan a picture. In fact, you could take a cell phone and shoot the picture with a cell phone and then offload it. But in any event, it's the simplest thing you ever saw. What does it cost? I think it was about $100 for to sign up for this. And you'd have to do your own talking with the people at Storyworth. But I recommend this highly because, and I don't get a commission on it, but it's it is
Working out, man.
it is amazing. Why is the quality so good? Well, this is print on demand. That's what it is. This is not Amazon. Maybe Amazon will buy them, but they are absolutely amazing. You know, Storyworth. Everyone has a Storyworth.
You mean I could take all my family pictures
Yes,
and take a picture of the family pictures, digital pictures, send it to them, and they'd send me back a book with all those in it?
they do. But you have to write
Yeah.
one chapter, in other words, everything is done monthly from a question. They give you these questions. See, you're in a template. Each chapter is the answer. What's the most dangerous thing you ever did?
What was the most dangerous thing? Running from the gang
Well,
in Chicago?
yeah. He said, tell us about your connection with Frank Sinatra. Okay. I never knew Frank Sinatra. He knew me. I had this photo company in Chicago, and the Rat Pack back then was into photography. They all had expensive cameras, and home darkrooms were the thing at that time. So he'd say, I know somebody in Chicago that can get it for you. It's Bill Ryan. Now, I never knew Frank Sinatra, but he knew me, and he had my phone number and all of these guys. So when he cut his first record, which was at 50, when he turned 50, he sent me a copy, and he said, here it is, Bill. Hope you like it. Have a ring-a-ding New Year. I still got it. But,
That's great.
but, I had a company, so I would buy stuff for them. Should I say this? Maybe I will. I had the same deal with the US government. I used to buy things for our government, super secrets, and ship them to funny places under funny names to funny people, being paid from strange places. I did the same thing. But anyway, so you get that name now, Storyworth.
Got it.
But don't ask me to hold your hand. Okay. But everybody has a story, and Storyworth, there's her phone number, 1-888-745-1080. And there it is. Okay. But nobody seems to know about it. Now, Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing, they're another outfit that publishes books. And they're the elephant in the room. They're the big one. I'm not going to tell you too much about them, except that Amazon Kindle, you can look them up on your computer. They're there. They're straight shooters. They pay over 70% commissions on the sale of your book. In other words, if you sold a book for $10, they give you 70 cents. 70%. That mean?
No, wait a minute. 70%
$7.
of $10 is $7, not 70.
Well, I told you I never got any mathematics in school, but I had 20 years of volunteer bus tours. I learned a great deal about the plantations. I learned about people. These are plantations. These are things that I was involved in. Osceola, the King's Road, and St. Augustine. December 1835, war, a strange death in St. Augustine. A guy that's buried there incognito. John Yoakum Buell is buried in St. Augustine next to his father, and nobody knew it. He was murdered. It's a cold case killing. And there is the burial record of Buell's son on May 8th, 1836. And I can prove that he was murdered, but nobody else will agree. The war ran almost 10 years, and it was comparable to Vietnam, very similar. In other words, foreign governments would equip the Indians with high-tech equipment, rifles. Our soldiers had muskets that were lucky they could shoot 100 yards, maybe. The soldiers fought like Europeans, stand in a row and fire. The Indians would fire a volley behind a tree and run like hell, and so it went on. There are many, many publishers out there. Ingram Spark, Amazon, beware, watch out. Everybody and his brother today is publishing a book. Some offer inferior stuff at high prices. Many represent them as Amazon or being Amazon. They ain't Amazon. So the only thing Bill Ryan can do is, if you're in the hands of a book publisher, and they say these people are pretty honest, but if you're in the hands of someone that says he'll publish your book for you, get the price first. Don't sign any contracts. Beware, be careful. It's like our new bookie joints. It's the books have become the racetrack business of today. And so right now you're looking at the website run by my engineer son, Jim. He has it in his basement. So like, who was that? Hillary Clinton. She had her own website. Well, I do too. And it runs from my son's basement. So you share your story with your family and the world, but be careful. Okay, I've had an amazing life. It's described in Technology Chaser. Yeah, I'm promoting the book. You want to buy it, you'll find out the details that are in there. They're a little confusing, but that's okay, so am I. Okay, anybody want to ask questions?
I think that's the book I have, is it not?
Yeah, it is. That's the end of my talk. I'll be back here in the month of October, and we'll do a history. We're going to do some historical stuff.
Yeah. Good.
That's great.
Thank you,
Right.
Bill. Tom Duncan.
Very, very interesting.
Absolutely.
This one was on me.
Well, you have some narrow escapes there.
I have,
Yes.
Yeah,
I have.
especially in the bookie business.
Well, I had a narrow escape. I had Techno, New Tech rather, and we had a real operation going. And I had imported stuff, usually about $1 million a month of stuff from Europe. And to do that, I had to issue letters of credit. Well, the bank I was with in Chicago got arrested by the banking authorities for irregular activity. And I wasn't me. And so they called my loan. So they said, Bill, you owe us $1 million, pay us next week. And I said, what? These are 90-day letter of credit. Well, fortunately, I had a buyer for the company. The only thing I didn't know is it was a Chinese front outfit.
Wow.
And they killed my buyer, they murdered him. And so it was a Chinese front, I didn't know it. And so I went to Florida in retirement, waiting for the checks to arrive. Guess what? The checks never came.
You mean the Chinese stole the whole works?
The whole works.
Works.
Yeah, well, if you want to get done, that's a good place to go.
Somebody that steals my stuff gets trashed.
Yeah.
So I don't know who made the better deal. I was relieved from my debt.
Yeah.
The banks loved them, and they gave me
Yeah.
a release. I got in a rented truck, a U-Haul truck, with Pat in the driving the car in front. We had a parakeet, Petey, and she was sitting on the side of Pat, and Pat was talking to the parakeet all the way down to Florida, and I was happy because I was expecting that. Oh, hell, I knew you'd ask that. I
What century?
it
was
would be
first?
about 26 years ago.
Around
Ain't bad.
1999.
Yeah.
Not long ago.
Yeah,
That's the year I got it.
well, it's awful quiet. Did we lose all our listeners?
We've still got them. They're just
No.
listening to
Thanks
you.
for,
That's it.
Anybody got a question?
Well, how did you fit all of that into one life, Bill? I don't know. It's just fascinating.
Well, I was brought up in bookie joints. I was brought up in a prison.
What more could you expect?
You know what bookie joints offer though? They had great food. You know, when you have a person in there to bet, you had nice, comfortable chairs, and you had a tote board, guy with headphones on, with all the odds at the different tracks. And they were honest. Some of the races were fixed. Some of the horse races were fixed. But for the most part, the bookies were straight as hell. I mean, they paid off the debt, and, it was a way of spending an afternoon.
I'm reading about a man down in Florida that had the dog races. He owned the
Same
dog
thing.
track.
Same thing.
And yeah, well, he had a new way of doing it. Well, I guess they did with the horses too, but he would feed all the dogs a lot of food, and the ones he wanted to bet on, he wouldn't feed them much.
Well,
They'd be loaded.
they did the same
Every
thing.
time.
They did the same thing with horses.
They did.
Oh, yeah. But for the most part, it was pretty straight. Where it got nasty was Al Capone coming in
Yeah.
and trying to take over. My father worked for somebody called the General News Bureau, and they put out the daily racing form newspaper. And so he was in charge of the wire room, connecting. And the wires were all Western Union. They leased the wires from Western Union. But these weren't crooks. These weren't criminals. But you could get dead with Mr. Capone. I mean, he could convert you, anybody connected there. It wasn't a good thing. You could know something, and that knowledge would get you dead.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, Bill, it's Fran from Florida. We miss you every Wednesday. I have to tell you something. I wish you could come back down. They're turning the Wednesday Boys Network into Girls Network. So you better come down and see us one of these days.
I always liked the place, but I'm pretty old and I'm falling apart.
Bill, you're looking good. For all that you've been through, falling down 3 flights of stairs, you look darn good.
Would you buy a 92-year-old car?
No. No, I don't think so. I thought maybe you're asking about our van there. We're not going to talk to you about that online.
Hey, Bill, it's Ed. What Fran says is 100% true. I'm highly outnumbered. You need to come down for a spell.
Well, you guys are up against a tough fight because, you got profit. Everybody wants to build houses, and you got land, and a lot of this land, you will know, has a history, has a story to tell, going back to colonial times, going back to the early Spanish. And it's a wonderful story. It's why people go to Florida in the first place. They have some illusion in their mind that Florida is still a Disney World type place. And this could be destroyed in an instant, and you know that. You guys are defenders of this. I can't say you're going to win, but I sure would cheer you and hope that you win.
We're sure fighting hard,
Yeah, fight hard,
especially Ed.
but money talks.
Well, that's where Elaine's coming in. She's bringing all the money, right, Elaine?
I was just gonna say, everyone, send your money to Bunnell, Flagler County Historical Society. It's a great thing and we'll use it wisely.
It absolutely is. It's a great place.
Thank you.
Bill, you'd
I've
be
been
proud
doing
of the
these-
work we're doing.
And we were doing real well with these Zooms till I fell down a flight of stairs.
Oh,
And I mean, I fell through the air. I mean, if you look at it, it's 3 stairs down through the air.
Oh,
Can't tell you why I fell. Don't know.
You
I still
just-
think I was holding this Bible was so heavy, it pulled me down.
Hey, Bill, we're gonna be giving one of your books away at our raffle, at our quarterly meeting on Saturday. I just wanted to tell you that. This one's hot off the
Yay.
press.
Hey, I get a huge commission from Amazon. I might even think of retiring.
It was.
Don't
fun
ever
listening,
think that
Bill.
you'll get rich.
Bill,
Although
it
I
was
heard the author of The Shades of Gray, you know, that was kind of a teenage,
50 Shades of Gray.
was making a huge amount of money on their self-published books. So you can make money if you write the right kind of a book.
Bill,
Command
Bill,
it.
this is Mary Helen, and
Hi, Mary.
we just sold one of those 50 Shades of Gray books at the used bookstore last week. Hadn't seen one for a while, but I guess they're still around. Anyway, really enjoyed your talk. Thank you so much. See you soon. Like tonight at 7? Are you gonna make it for 7 o'clock?
What am I gonna do?
Our Thursday evening Zoom chat, are you gonna make it?
I don't know. I'll go over with Joyce. Joyce is
Well,
off.
Joyce will drag you, okay?
That's right. He's coming here for dinner after he leaves the library.
Okay, okay, well, we'll
And
see
then
you
we'll
both,
go on Zoom at 7 with you.
yes, see you
Okay.
both at 7, okay,
Yes. Okay.
I'll be there too.
okay.
Thank you all. I love
Hey,
you
you're
all.
welcome.
Bye. Take care, everybody.
Just tell Mary Helen and give her your email. She'll give you the link.
The next Zoom will be on history. It won't be on me. So,
Looking forward to it, Bill. Send me the information and I'll get it out for you.
Okay, bye.
Bye, everybody. Take
All
care.
right,
now.
thanks for getting that info out.
bye, guys.
Bye.
Roger.
Thanks for doing your talk. It was great.
Yes.
Roger, is that Roger Van Fleet?
What, that one. Hi.
Bye.
Okay.